Hello everyone, I am Mahi and today I am going to read the third chapter of class 12 English, A Pinch of Snuff. It's a very humorous story, so let's get started. Manohar Malgaonkar, 1913, is a well-known novelist and short story writer with over 25 publications to his credit. His important work include Distant Drum, The Princess, A Bench in the Ganges, and Bombay Beaver. The present short story, A Pinch of Snuff, taken from contemporary Indian short stories in English, is full of wit and adventure. The reader's excitement is built up through the accuracy and the profound comedy of Malgaonkar's narrative. Paragraph first. Mother's announcement shook me. Nanu Kaka is coming, she said. Second. Oh my God, I said, couldn't we send him a wire saying we are leaving, that I am transferred or something? Third. No dear, mother said, he must be already on the train. Besides, she added reassuringly, he says he cannot stay here for more than 2 or 3 days. Fourth. What is he coming to Delhi for in this heat? Fifth. He wants to see some minister. Sixth. What that mean? That means he will be here for weeks. Ministers don't see people for weeks, months. Oh my God. Paragraph 7. If your Nanu Kaka wants to see a minister, I am sure he will manage to see him, mother said, any time of the day or night. Paragraph 8. Mother has always been very loyal to her side of the family, and after all, Nanu Kaka is her brother. I, on the other hand, may have something of a complex about ministers. I am an undersecretary on probation and as such trained to regard ministers as being 2 steps higher than God, the secretaries being just 1 step higher. Paragraph 9. I was waiting on the platform when the train came in. Nanu Kaka stood in the doorway of a second-class carriage, a striking figure, white-haired, with an impressive moustache. He still wears the old-fashioned knee-length black coat and the red silk pagri of the Deccani Brahmin and wraps a white angocha round his shoulders. Paragraph 10. As I went up, he handed me a basket. Take this out quick, he whispered. I shall join you outside the station. Paragraph 11. I asked no questions. I tucked the basket under my arm and turned, only to bump into an enormous Marwari woman who had her head covered in a burqa. But my apologies were drowned by the strange sounds emanating from the basket, the protest of an outraged kitten, spits, struts, mew, mew, mew. Paragraph 12. I ducked and ran and mingled with the crowd and switched through the gate in the wake of a sick marriage party. Paragraph 13. Nanu Kaka was long time coming. The station yard was nearly empty and the last tonga had gone when he emerged, escorted by a frowning ticket inspector. Paragraph 14. No room in the third class, and they would not issue second-class tickets without reservation. Nanu Kaka explained as he came up to me, had to travel second on a third-class ticket, but it was all arranged quite amicably. Such a nice young man, the TC. You saw how he even came right out with me so that there should be no trouble. The kitten, of course, travelled free. How is it? Paragraph 15. Very quiet. I said, perhaps it is dead. I thought hopefully. 16. We got into the car, and even before I had changed into second gear, Nanu Kaka asked, "When have you arranged for the minister to see me? Can't stay here for more than 2 days, 3 at the most." Paragraph 17. It was a time for the frankness. "Look, uncle," I said, "I am merely an undersecretary on probation, and it is more than my job is worth to go asking for interviews with ministers." Paragraph 18. "Oh," Nanu Kaka said, "I had rather hoped." "Oh, I see. Well, never mind." He took a pinch of snuff, brushed his fingers delicately on his angocha, and sat back, closing his eyes and puckering his eyebrows as though in deep thought. He also clucked his tongue several times in a typically Dickeny way, registering pity. Paragraph 19. Mother was waiting on the doorstep, her face wreathed in smiles. She went into squeals of delight over the kitten and made a lot of fuss over Nanu Kaka. I also found that she had installed him in my bedroom so that I had to put a charpie for myself in the back veranda. Paragraph 20. At mother's insistence, I had taken 2 days leave from the office, and in the afternoon I drove Nanu Kaka to the North Block. He went in to see the minister, and I waited in the car park. It was 2 hours before he returned, mumbling colorful Marathi swear words. I did not dare ask him what had happened and drove without saying a word. He cooled down in a little while though and said, Paragraph 21. 2 hours I spent being transferred from one chaprasi to another, tramping through the corridors, and in the end succeeded in getting a deputy secretary to give me an appointment 3 days from now. Same fool, same fool. And there was another series of Marathi expletives. In a linguistic emergency, my uncle always turned to his mother tongue. Paragraph 22. A garnished yellow sports car flashed past us, blaring its horn in an uninterrupted blast, and the young man at the wheel waved his hand at me. 23. What a rude man! Who was that? Nanu Kaka asked. 24. Chap called Ratiram, works in the same ministry as mine. 25. I see. 26. There was some talk about his going as trade commissioner to Hazrat Barkat Ali, you know, the ambassador, but they say it is all off now. I said, just to make conservation. Paragraph 27. Why don't you get sent out on one of these foreign assignments? Nanu Kaka asked. Paragraph 28. To get sent on a foreign assignment is in the same category as getting an interview with a minister. Uncle, I said somewhat unkindly. It takes pull. Ratiram is the son of Sohan Lal Ratiram, you know, the party boss in Delhi. Paragraph 29. Nanu Kaka sat up with a jerk. What was that? What did you say? Sohan Lal Ratiram's son. How extraordinary. Well, well. He leaned back in his seat and stared at me for a long time. Now let me see. You have got a close collar Jodhpur coat, haven't you? Good. And can you tie a turban? No. Well, I shall have to put it on you, although I am no expert. This tie and collar business is no good these days. Let's go home. After you have changed, we will go and see him. Paragraph 30. See home. 31. Why Lala Sohan Lal, of course. 32. Do you know him at all? 33. Of course not, Nanu Kaka said. Paragraph 34. I changed into Jodhpur coat and Uncle Nanu Kaka tied a huge orange turban down my head. Act as though you were my ER, a sort of ADC. He cautioned me as we started for Lala Sohan Lal's house. Paragraph 35. A secretary in a spotless white cloth received us and showed us into a cool white room before he asked our business very politely. Paragraph 36. Just dropped in, Nanu Kaka said casually. I had come to Delhi for the Jamindar's convention, a rather unofficial gathering, you know, since we Jamindars are not exactly popular these days. VP has also sent a cable. He wants to see me, but he is not coming from Washington until tomorrow. I thought I might as well see Lalaji and tell him what arrangements we, the Zamindars, have made for the agricultural vote. Paragraph 37. Nanu Kaka sort of trailed off, and I could see that he was not really making an impression on the secretary, who was just being polite and playing it safe. I shall have to see whether Lalaji is free, the secretary said. He seldom sees ER visitors without a previous appointment. Paragraph 38. Lalaji must have been free because from the adjoining room we could just hear the unhurried gurgle of the hookah, and then we could hear the haughty secretary talking to him. Paragraph 39. What day is it today? Nanu Kaka asked me. 40. I thought he was speaking in an unusually loud voice. Tuesday, I told him. 41. Oh, only Tuesday. And to think that on Saturday I was in Beirut. Amazing, isn't it? 42. I swallowed hard. Amazing, I agreed. 43. And if I had listened to Hazrat, I would still be abroad. Old HB was just dying to drag me to the foreign minister. Paragraph 44. The steady gurgling of hookah in the next room had suddenly stopped. 45. What did you say? Nanu Kaka asked, although I had not even opened my mouth. Why did not I stay back? You know how it was with HB the last time when he was in Geneva, got me involved in the cotton talks. Besides, from Bombay, SK had been sending me cable after cable. Paragraph 46. That was the moment Lala Sohan Lal Ratiram came waddling out of the inner room with the secretary at his heels, and from then on everything was smothered in the saccharine courtesy of the seasoned political campaigner. As soon as the introductions were over, the secretary was sent bustling off to order coffee and sweetmeats and pan. Paragraph 47. They spared guardedly about Zamindars and votes and the weather for a few minutes before coming to brass tacks. I hear you know Hazrat Barkat Ali well, Sohan Lal said with an ingratiating grin. Paragraph 48. Oh, old HB, how did you know? I know HB. Actually, we were at school together, always regarded me as a sort of elder brother. Rather touching, really, even today. He seldom takes a big decision without consulting me. When the PM offered him the embassy, who do you think had to make up HB's mind for him? Paragraph 49. You. 50. That's right, me. Good old HB. Paragraph 51. Ahahaha, laughed Sohan Lal, now showing all his pan-stained teeth. In that case, it is a lucky day that you have come to my humble house. Very lucky, because my son, he is in the balanced ministry here. He was going as trade commissioner to Hazrat Barkat Ali, but you know how there are wheels within wheels. Someone seems to have poisoned the ambassador's mind about my son, about some transaction concerning AVQ property. Actually, it was a perfectly legitimate. Paragraph 52. Nanu Kaka waved away and further explanation. That should be quite simple. He announced, I shall write and tell HB to do it. No, don't thank me at all. After all, we men in the public eye must do things for one another. Ha ha ha. One good turn deserves another. Paragraph 53. Nanu Kaka opened his silver snuff box and took a pinch. Then, flicking on his angocha, he casually mentioned the name of the welfare minister. Paragraph 54. The fixed grin on Sohan Lal's face vanished. Is he a friend of yours? Nanu Kaka admitted. No, not exactly. Paragraph 55. I am so glad, Sohan Lal said, relieved, so glad. That man, such ingratitude. I gave him a ticket, helped him in every way, and what do I get in return? Paragraph 56. I turned out that the minister and Lala Sohan Lal, once the best of friends, were now at daggers drawn. Since last year, when the minister had refused to consider a proposal for his daughter to marry Lalaji's son. Paragraph 57. He wants a prince. Sohan Lal snorted. What is a prince these days? For confidential, I can tell you that the minister has burnt his boards. I would be surprised if he is given a ticket for the next elections. Very surprised. He turns my son down and wants a prince. Bah! And what is even more funny, I am told that so far they haven't even exchanged horoscopes. Even the astrologers on both sides haven't come together to decide whether it would be an auspicious match. Paragraph 58. Disgraceful. Nanu Kaka snorted. Disgraceful. What prince did you say? 59. Some twopenny estate called Ninor. Paragraph 60. We left the house soon after that, Nanu Kaka having again promised that he would write to old HB that very day. As we drove away, both Lalaji and his superior secretary were bowing to him from the porch. Paragraph 61. Nanu Kaka was strangely silenced that evening and went to bed soon after dinner, but in the morning he was chirpy again. Paragraph 62. We are going to the minister's house this morning, he announced. 63. Not me, please uncle, I appealed. Paragraph 64. He inhaled some snuff before he spoke, and by that time he seemed to have forgotten what I had said. This car of yours, too old, too small. We shall need something much more impressive. You noticed how that secretary treated us coldly at first. If we had gone in a bigger car, he would have been quite different. Paragraph 65. What about a taxi? 66. No, not a taxi, a private car driven by a liveried chauffeur the bigger the better. 67. I remember that an acquaintance of mine has been trying to sell for some months an enormous, stately, outlandish car that would have only been built for a court procession. I told Nanu Kaka about it. Paragraph 68. That's it. We shall take it out for a brief trial, he suggested breezily. 69. I am sure we could, I said, if we looked like genuine buyers, but these motor car touts can smell a rich man a mile off. Paragraph 70. You leave that to me, Nanu Kaka said. You just leave the details to me. 71. And what about these liveried chauffeurs? I asked. 72. You, of course, Nanu Kaka said blandly. 73. He took out his cheque book and wrote a cheque for 1,000 rupees. He folded it neatly and put it into the inner pocket of an old coat of his. Now call your dhobi, he told me. Paragraph 74. I called the dhobi and uncle gave him the coat and took him outside and had a talk with him. Then we drove over to the Sikha auto dealers and Nanu Kaka asked if he could try out the car we had in mind. Paragraph 75. We had barely got talking to the manager when the dhobi rushed into shop holding Nanu Kaka's old coat in one hand and brandishing the cheque with the other. Oh, there you are, he penned. Look what you had left in his coat, in this coat of yours. Paragraph 76. Nanu Kaka held out the cheque at the arm's length and clucked his tongue several times. How careless of me, he said. I am always doing this sort of thing. Bearer, cheque too. Anyone could have cashed it. Here, my good man, he said to the dhobi, there is a reward for you. There is nothing like honesty, and he gave him a 2-rupee note and a pat on the back. Paragraph 77. After this demonstration of wealth, it was quite easy about the car. I drove wearing my white Jodhpur coat and the orange turban, and Nanu Kaka sat regally at the back, looking every inch what he was supposed to be, a hereditary Pandit from a princely estate. Paragraph 78. We drove to the minister's house, and the servants and the secretary fussed around Nanu Kaka, who refused to state his business out merrily called for the visitor's book. Paragraph 79. I have just come to make a formal call, he announced. I have no wish to disturb the minister. It is just a formality that we in the old princely estates still observe. His Highness is a great stickler for these courtesies. They brought the flourish and added, hereditary astrologer to the Maharaja of Ninor. At the end, he gave his Delhi address, my address. Paragraph 80. Without another word, and as though he were in a tearing hurry, he got into the car and said loudly. Paragraph 81. Take me to the Maharaja Sutkata's palace. I have to return all those horoscopes entrusted to me. As the car turned out of the gate, I glanced backwards and saw a huge dark Khadar-clad figure peering at us from an upper story window. Paragraph 82. We had just finished tea and we were trying to housebreak the new kitten which had just made a puddle on the floor when the car with the white triangle stopped in front of the house. And Nanu Kaka went out with folded hands to receive the welfare minister who had come to see him. Paragraph 83. Nanu Kaka left yesterday. His mission accomplished, I never found out what it was that he wanted to see the minister about. Also, I wonder what is going to happen when the minister discovers that my uncle has never been within 100 miles of a place called Ninor. Although I am now convinced that Nanu Kaka will deal with the situation without allowing a single fold of his angosha to fall off the place. Paragraph 84. Only when it happens, I want to be somewhere far out of range. Thank you.